Kind of want to check out the history of Action Park.
New and improved and open once again.
Fantastic. Anna Gilligan is there
This
this
good.
morning. Hello, Anna.
Hi guys, yeah, I think you're seeing some guys jump off the Tarzan jump here at Action Park. It's been closed since 1996.
Tarzan jump.
They reopened it on June 14th. I'm here with the owner, Andrew Mulhaville. He's also the son of the man who founded it. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for coming out. What a day we have. It's beautiful here at Action Park.
So I gotta ask you, because Action Park got a bit of a reputation.
A bit of a reputation.
Some people
It's an
got
understatement. It had a massive reputation for like
That was 30 years ago. The world has
being
changed.
crazy.
I mean, when my dad started the park, he was the guy inventing the rides and bringing inventors in. Now it's highly regulated. Everything's engineered.
I love Action Park because it's so beautiful.
I need a napkin. Hold on. I'll be right back. Well, I might as well finish my food. Fuck it. I'll go get a napkin in a second. Never mind. I'll just finish these nachos. They're so messy.
The year is 1976. Gene Mulvihill, the head of entertainment company Great American Recreation, has added a new attraction to Vernon, New Jersey's Vernon Valley Ski Resort. 2 brand new alpine slides were installed to keep business up in the off-season. An alpine slide is a one-person cart ride, in which the rider rides down a hill on a smooth track. The rider has a brake lever in between their legs, giving them complete control of their speed. The attraction had become popular for ski resorts in the late 70s, and Vernon Valley Ski Resort's alpine slide was advertised as an attraction for all ages, claiming, "We've had grandfathers and we've had kids of kindergarten age coming down our runs alone." I also have a picture showing a mother controlling the sled with an infant in her arms. It's that easy. After the success of the slide, Mulvihill went forward with his plans to expand the ski resort into a water park during the off-season. He added 2 water slides and a racetrack, and more slides, a softball field, a tennis court, and a swimming pool were added shortly thereafter. The Vernon Valley Summer Park was rebranded to Action Park, a thrilling amusement park where you control the action. More slides and rides were added, and they began their big marketing push to draw audiences into their new water park.
Just go to Action Park, there's no other park like it.
When it's hot out, this is a great place.
I think this
to
was the
spend
one with the
your family.
loop-de-loop.
So lots of big things for little kids to do. I love Action Park
And,
because
like,
it's so beautiful.
I think this is the one where kids worked at the park too. Like, this is a fully ran by kids almost, besides like the guy who bought the land.
It's like coming to Broadway. It's wonderful.
Broadway.
Race like a pro. It's great. These are the most amazing rides in the world. I love it here.
The park was revolutionary. Not only was it one of the first water parks of its kind in the United States, but it also marketed itself as the biggest. It was eventually home to 75 rides, 40 of which were water slides. Action Park was split into 3 themed lands. The first was...
Motor World?
consisted of 3 types of attractions, land, water, and air rides. On land was the popular battle action tanks. For an additional fee, guests could ride inside tanks equipped
You
with
could be a
baseball
tank.
cannons. The goal was to shoot the other tanks in the caged area on one of their targets, disabling their cannons for 15 seconds. Those that chose to ride the tanks were allotted 5 minutes to do so, and those that did not want to ride could pay to use a stationary cannon from the outside. Maintenance employees attempting to fix broken down tanks would be subject to fire from the rowdy guests, making the attraction a nightmare to work at. The other 2 land-based Motor World attractions were the Lola cars and the Super Go-Karts, both of which were kart race attractions. The Super Go-Karts were driven on a small loop. The carts themselves were designed to max out at 20 miles per hour, but the employees found that sticking a tennis ball in the governor device allowed the cart to go as fast as possible, with the new maximum speed being around 50 miles an hour. Head-on collisions frequently
50.
sent guests to the hospital, and the fumes from the engines overwhelmed the
I can
riders
imagine.
sometimes. The Lola
Jeez.
cars were mini
They
open
zooming.
cockpit race cars driven on a longer track, and they cost an additional charge to ride. Their maximum speed could also be tampered with by park employees. These were also used after hours by the workers, sometimes being taken off the track and driven on the nearby highway. There were 2 water rides in Motor World. The super speedboats were driven in a small circle around an island in a pond that also had a large population of snakes in it. The guests would often attempt to bump nearby boats, as if they were on Motor World's other water attraction, bumper boats. These were boats placed in a small pool, and were designed to withstand guests crashing into one another. These were known to leak gasoline, which once required a guest to be examined after too much fuel leaked on their skin. The boats were also incredibly small. and riders with long legs had to position their feet off the side of the boat to fit. This led to injuries and bone fractures after collisions. Finally, Motor World had 2 airbase attractions. One was Space Shot, which was a typical drop tower ride.
I've
and
never
was one
heard
the
of
safest
these.
rides at the park, given it was only
I've just
open
seen the
for
Loop
Action
De
Park's last
in
operating
Johnny
year.
Knoxville.
The second air ride was
That's
another
all I've
uncharted
seen.
attraction, Slingshot, which was also fairly safe. This ride was a common amusement park and carnival ride, in which guests were shot up on 2 bungee cords and flipped upside down as they flew through the air. There's no doubt that Motor World had its dangerous attractions, but this is just the beginning of what Action Park has in store. Another section of the park was
The Alpine.
many non-water-based attractions were located in their own section of the park,
Domino's.
sometimes labeled the Alpine Center. These included the aforementioned
Domino's
Alpine
there.
slides, as well as a bungee jump titled the Snapple Snap Up Whippersnapper ride. Originally having 2 jump stations and then later 4, guests could jump off the tower for an additional.
Wait, what did I say? I have no idea whether they landed a lucrative Snapple sponsorship or if they just oddly named attraction. I was gonna say, how did they get a Snapple sponsorship? Maybe they didn't. Also, different times, if they did get it.
fee. A skate park also had a short run at Action Park. It was poorly designed, as it was surrounded by concrete and had uneven edges, which led to many injuries during its existence. Interestingly, Action Park also had an attraction entitled the Action Park Gladiator Challenge, partially based off
Gladiator
of the popular
mode.
American Gladiators TV show. This included
Bro.
obstacle courses.
Oh man, the gladiator spaces is always where I'd spend my time in like a jump extreme or something. Just straight battling it out with the boys. That was the place to be.
And jousting matches against the Action Park Gladiators. Finally, Action Park had its own monorail called the Transmobile. This went to the Ski Lodge, the Alpine Center, and to Motor World. So far, Action Park has proved to be dangerous, but where are the absolutely terrifying rides? Where are the rides that are so insane that their mere existence is unbelievable? Moreover, where are the water slides?
True, actually.
This section put the action in Action Park. Waterworld had it all. It was home to the tidal wave pool, a 100 feet by 200 feet
Ooh, a
pool
wave
that could
pool.
hold anywhere between 500
I like a
and 1,000
wave pool.
people. The pool's
A
floor
lazy
was slanted,
river.
and the
I
further
like
a guest
those.
went in it, the deeper it got. Waves went 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off, and they could reach a height of over 3 feet. This was challenging for swimmers of all skill levels, as the pool was hard to read and the fresh water was more difficult to swim in than salt water. A dozen lifeguards were on duty at the pool, and they would have to save around 30 people on a busy day. The Tarzan swing was a heavily advertised attraction in which guests would swing on a 20-foot cable over a pool. This spring-fed pool was so cool that lifeguards would have to rescue guests that could not swim after the shock of the cold water. This was also a popular attraction for men to pull down their pants or women to pull up their tops for the line of people to see. The appropriately named Aqua Scoot gave
Right.
guests a sled, with which they would slide down an assembly line style roller coaster, hurtling them toward a shallow pool that they would skip across. If the guest was not in an ideal position, it would get caught under the water, sending the rider crashing forward. There were originally a pair of these slides, each 30 feet long, but a third slide was eventually added. The diving cliffs had 2 jumping bases, one 23 feet and the other 18 feet tall, with the pool below being 16 feet. The pool was also for non-jumpers, some of which were unaware of the cliffs, which resulted in collisions. There was only one lifeguard on duty, who had to work extra hard to make sure that no one was at the bottom of the pool.
Only one.
The super speed water slides,
Jeez.
also known as Geronimo Falls, were a pair of high-speed vertical water slides. One of them was steeper than the other, and both were dangerous. Near these was the safer
Those look
Kamikaze,
steep
which was
as
a more
hell.
traditional tube
Those
slide.
look-
The kayak experience was pretty self-explanatory.
Those are crazy. Wait, what did I say? I was able to find any footage of this attraction due to the fact that it closed in 1982 for reasons that will be discussed shortly. Okay. Bro, those are crazy.
Vertical water slides. One of them was steeper than the other, and both were dangerous.
One's
Near these
steeper
was the
too,
safer
holy shit.
Kamikaze, which was a more traditional tube slide. The kayak experience was pretty
Kinda wanna
self-explanatory
ride it, though.
and used
They
underwater
look pretty
fans
fun.
to simulate water rapids. This was
So
dangerous,
steep.
but that goes without saying at this
Be
point.
fast.
A similar ride, the Roarin' Rapids, allowed guests to ride in a 1 or 2 person raft down a similar river. The Surf Hill had riders slide down a multi-laned, multi-hill slide on a mat. Riders could easily cross over to the adjacent lanes and cause collisions. And the 7th hill, nicknamed the Backbreaker, had an additional hump that would
I
send
need a
riders
napkin.
flying, resulting
Hold on.
in injury.
I gotta go
The
get a
Colorado
napkin.
River Ride was another raft ride, this time allowing up to 4 people, and it went through the wooded area of the park. At one point, the riders would come to a fork in the river and had to choose between 2 paths. The first path took guests under a waterfall and a series of tunnels. The second path included a waterfall and another fork, with one path being steeper than the other. The ride also included a foot-tall jump that would allow riders and their raft a short airtime. The Aerodonium was a skydiving simulator that caused injuries when guests would try to stop their falls with their arms. Waterworld also had a variety of other typical water slides and pools that were less notable, but there is one in particular that has yet to be mentioned. This is the attraction that made Action Park the most infamous, the Cannonball Loop. A tubed water slide with a vertical loop, similar to that of a roller coaster. It was rumored that during the testing of the attraction, Mulvihill offered $100 to employees who were willing to try it. Test dummies apparently came out of the loop without their heads. When it was open, guests would be weighed, hosed down, and given a set of instructions to decrease the possibility of injury. A hatch was added to the top of the loop to assist stuck riders that could not make it all the way through the slide. Many guests that completed the loop would come out at the bottom, suffering from bloody noses or other injuries, either from hitting the top of the loop or the impact on the way down. The Cannonball Loop was indicative of a larger issue with Action Park, as many of the other attractions were poorly crafted by designers that were less than engineers, and most were designed to minimize cost rather than maximize safety. The rides became even more dangerous when paired with the fact that the park sold alcohol at many of the convenience stands, often to minors. There was even a microbrewery near Motorworld. Many of the guests visiting the inexpensive park came from low-income areas, and did not have the necessary swimming skills to navigate some of the attractions and pools. Action Park also heavily marketed to Spanish populations, but there were no translations or translators for the guests when they visited, so explaining safety instructions was virtually impossible.
You already know that Action Park has the most innovative and exciting rides. The Alpine Slide, Grand Prix race cars, and spectacular water rides. But Action Park means more than just great rides. It means super live shows, fantastic summer festivals, and scrumptious food and drink,
Ooh, that glizzy.
including an authentic German brewery. Come to Action
Yummy.
Park, because the rides aren't the only thing that's great. Labor Day Polish Festival, September 6th and 7th.
Polish festival.
The majority of those employees were teenagers, and were not equipped to handle the rowdy guests of the park. So on any given day, you could have an overcrowded water park filled with drunk teenagers that couldn't swim, riding shoddily built attractions supervised
Drunk.
by teenagers that
Can't
may or
swim.
may not be able to communicate
my.
with them. It is no wonder what happened next.
Oh, jeez. Right.
On July 8th, 1980, a male employee was riding the Alpine Slide when his cart went off the track. He hit his head on a rock during the crash, killing him. He was only 19. 2 years later, on July 24th, 1982, a 15-year-old guest was overcome by the waves of the tidal wave pool and drowned. On August 1st, a mere week later, a 27-year-old guest was riding the kayak experience when he was trying to re-enter his kayak.
Wait,
after
it still
falling
got
out.
to stay open.
When doing this, he made contact with the live wiring that powered the underwater fans.
I guess it'd be
the
like that.
electrocution sent him into cardiac arrest, and he passed after being rushed to the hospital.
That's
2 years later, in
fucking crazy.
1984, a guest died on the Tarzan swing after a heart attack, supposedly due to the unexpected shock from the cold water. That same year, on August 27th,
how cold
a
was that
20-year-old
water?
drowned in the tidal wave pool.
Damn,
On
that
July
water was
19th,
cold.
1987, another guest drowned there, giving it the nickname the Grave Pool. These deaths are tragic, and often overshadowed by the lunacy and legacy of Action Park. Interestingly enough, Action Park was able to avoid many lawsuits with these deaths and many other injuries, due in part to its reputation, and also the lax regulations New Jersey had for amusement and water parks. Great American Recreation was even able
right.
to expand the Action Park brand to other parts of the country, opening Pocono Action Park in Tannersville, Pennsylvania in 1980, and Action Mountain in Pine Hill, New Jersey in 1984.
Get wild. Get wet.
Wet and wild.
Feel the thrill as you zoom through the black hole. Spin and splash on our
This makes me want to go
boats.
swimming.
While the kids play in our fun-filled kiddie area,
Even though it's like
go off
40
in a
degrees
huge
outside.
swimming pool or race around the Grand Prix track.
I've wanted to go swimming like all year, but I haven't gone
Any of
swimming.
our action-packed rides at Action Mountain in
There's
Pine
nowhere
Hill,
really
New
to go
Jersey.
swimming around me. Kind of rough.
Pocono Action Park had many repeat attractions as Action Park, and was closed in 1991. Action Mountain ran into some financial difficulties with the IRS and the town it was located in, and was closed in 1986. So why did the original Action Park close? While Action Park and Mulvihill were able to avoid lawsuits with many of the accidents and deaths, the two deaths in 1984 stemmed cases that rightfully plagued the park with a variety of legal problems. Mulvihill eventually pled guilty to 5 charges of insurance fraud. He and his associates claimed that the park saw over
5
1
charges
million guests a year, and therefore the
of
death toll was
insurance
comparatively
fraud.
low. The local ER, on the other hand, said that they would have to treat 5 to 10 guests on some days. In response to the high amount of guests visiting the hospital,
Jeez.
Action Park bought Vernon, New Jersey new ambulances. Despite all of these issues, the downfall of Action Park wouldn't come until 1996, and it was actually due to Great American Recreation's financial issues and not the park itself. On September 2nd, 1996, Action Park ended its final season, still with the hope that it would reopen the next year. However, Great American Recreation's bankruptcy made it impossible for Action Park to continue operations, so it didn't reopen. After this, the ski resort and action park were handed from investor to investor, undergoing renovations for 2 years before reopening in 1998 as Mountain Creek. Safety was a priority under this management, and a valiant effort was put forth to distance Mountain Creek from Action Park's reputation. However, in 2010, Mountain Creek underwent a bankruptcy of its own, and the water park and ski resort was sold to the Mulvihill family. 2 years after this, in 2012, Eugene Mulvihill passed away, and his son Andrew Mulvihill took over ownership of the park. 2 years later, in 2014, Mountain Creek was rebranded back to Action Park. The park reopened many of its classic attractions, and started construction on new terrifying ones. The Sky Caliber was another attempt at a 360-degree vertically looping water slide, although it used technology to enhance safety. From my knowledge, it is yet to open at the park, and there's almost no information on its status. The new Action Park tried to use nostalgia to draw guests back for 2 years.
Just show off like a coffin?
Information on its status. The new Action Park tried to use nostalgia to draw guests back for 2 years, before in 2016 it was renamed back to Mountain Creek, in order to once again get away from the negative connotation of Action Park. Early this year, it was announced that Johnny Knoxville would be producing, writing, and starring in a film inspired by Action Park, but it was not shot on location. Death is heartbreaking, especially in environments designed for happiness and joy. Despite 6 people losing their lives there, Action Park is not remembered for its death toll. It is remembered for and by the kids that grew up with it and survived it. It is seen as a place where the quote-unquote popular and brave teens hung out. The fact that it was referred to as Traction Park or Class Action Park doesn't matter, because its inherent danger is more of a fond memory to the majority of its visitors. The burns, bruises, and the fractured tibias were a rite of passage for its former guests. You think you're cool because you survived a tame roller coaster at Disney in California or at Universal in Florida? Well, welcome to Vernon, New Jersey.
I survived.
Were you able to survive Action Park?
Right? True. I can see how it's not remembered for this last bit, because like you said, everybody who, went and got home is going to remember it as like a fucking wacky and crazy time. That was crazy nevertheless.